What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our Pac-12 football channel. The 2019 schedule for the Oregon Ducks was a perfect example of why you don't always benefit from scheduling tough non-conference matchups. If Oregon had beaten Auburn last year, or if they had not scheduled Auburn last year, I should say, and they had the one loss to Arizona State, and they finished the way they did, blowing out Utah, maybe Oregon makes the college football playoff instead of Oklahoma. I don't know. Oklahoma probably still gets the nod in that situation just because I think at that time the Big 12 was looked at as a much tougher conference than the Pac-12. But it would have at least been a discussion if Oregon did not play Auburn. Then, if they're playing an FCS team right there, they've got another win. They're 11-1. 12-1 after beating Utah, they definitely would have been in that discussion. So it's a high risk, high reward. If they had beaten Auburn and then lost to Arizona State, then I think they probably would have gotten in over Oklahoma because they would have had that win over Auburn plus the big win over Utah. So it's, again, high risk, high reward when you're scheduling these big non-conference matchups. And it's the same exact scenario going into 2020 where they're going to play Ohio State. And I think it's also, when you look at what happened with Oregon and Arizona State last year and what happened with Oklahoma and Kansas State, it's a perfect example of why Group of 5 teams really don't deserve to make the college football playoff, because when you play that caliber team every single week, it's tough to win all the games. You're going to have upsets a lot of the times, and that's what happened to Oregon with Arizona State. You have one bad game, you're playing quality opponents every single week, it's going to catch up to you. So this is the 2020 schedule. This first game of the year is, wow, I mean, this is really interesting with Oregon and North Dakota State. What's going to happen in this matchup? North Dakota State, of course, has owned the FCS level. They've been by far the best team in that division for quite some time. And I don't really follow the FCS, but I'm aware of that. I know about North Dakota State. And they play Oregon in week 1. Have we seen North Dakota State play against a good Power 5 team? Maybe they have. I don't remember it in recent years. I don't know what's going to happen here. I mean, you would think Oregon still is the better team. I mean, you're talking about one of the top FBS teams. But it's going to be intriguing to see what happens there. I've already heard some people thinking that maybe North Dakota State could pull off an upset. Who knows? And you can't worry about Ohio State, though. You got to take care of business there. Because if they look ahead, who knows? We could see an upset. But the next week they do play Ohio State on September the 12th, one of the biggest non-conference matchups. And again, it's high risk, high reward. Oregon loses a close game, runs the table. Yeah, they're going to have a shot at the college football playoff. But what if they trip up against Cal or Arizona or Oregon State? There could be an upset along the way. If they hadn't scheduled Ohio State and they're sitting there at 11-1, maybe they then would have a shot at the playoff. So it's very interesting, but I definitely applaud Oregon for playing these games. I think it does a lot for them, in recruiting, and I do think Oregon is going to be clearly the best team in the Pac-12 this year. So if they just play Ohio State close and they don't get upset, this team could actually be a college football playoff contender. Hawaii on September 19th, that could be a fairly close game there. I mean, that's a respectable non-conference schedule. North Dakota State, best FCS team. Ohio State, playoff contender. Hawaii, not a bad Group of 5 team, so a very respectable non-conference schedule. And maybe they need that. Maybe they do need that because the Pac-12 is down a little bit, or at least that's the perception. They play Colorado on September 26th on the road. Washington at home. Maybe Washington's down a little bit this year. They just lost their head coach, lost their starting quarterback, and many other players as well. Cal on October the 17th on the road. Cal always seems to pull off a big win every year, at least one. That is the game I would circle. Watch out for Oregon on the road at Cal. Stanford on October 24th. We'll see if they're going to get their act together. They have been down the last couple of years. Arizona on October the 31st, Halloween on the road. USC, a big game on November the 7th. That is maybe the game of the year in the Pac-12, in my opinion. I'm pretty high on USC coming into this year. Oregon gets them at home, though. That's the good news for that matchup. And then Arizona State on November the 13th. that's going to be revenge. Going to be revenge. Friday night game at home. You like Oregon's chances, I think, in that situation. But Arizona State has been known to pull off some big wins. They beat Michigan State the last couple of years, including last year on the road. Washington State without Mike Leach on November 21st, and then Oregon State on the road November 28th. Rivalry game. Never know what's going to happen, but Oregon should be favored pretty big right there. So you look at the Pac-12 schedule. Again, the only thing that jumps out to me is that Cal game on the road. I think that could be a tricky game. You get Washington at home, you get USC at home, Stanford at home, Arizona State at home. So a lot of their bigger games are at home. That bodes well for them in the Pac-12. But, of course, the big challenge is going to be Ohio State in Week 2. A game that if Oregon wins, it would be hard to imagine them not making the college football playoff. Even if they lose a conference game, I think that's enough to get them in. If they win the Pac-12 and just have one loss and they have a win over Ohio State, and if they lose it, we'll have to wait and see. I know they can't afford a second loss because look at what happened last year. But I definitely respect them for playing Ohio State in the non-conference, and I'm really looking forward to that game. But all in all, if you consider the conference schedule, this schedule for Oregon, really not that difficult. You just have that one big game against Ohio State that makes it a little tougher. But again, top to bottom, this is really not a very tough schedule, and I think it puts Oregon in a position to where they are definitely a playoff contender in 2020.